Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Petexia IP Matters web series. Today, I have the pleasure of Felix Coxwell is joining us from France to talk about defensive publication. Felix has been in this field for over 10 years, and most recently, he is the product manager for Questel, but he's been helping many companies to form their strategies for defensive publication. So with that, Felix, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thanks for the introduction. Okay. Excellent. So you should be able to see my slides now. So let's get started. This presentation is about defensive publication. So let's start with a definition, make sure we're all on the same page. Defensive publication is the purposeful publication of an invention, creating prior art to block future patents. So this means that you have an idea, you write down an enabling description, and you make it publicly available. And this blocks patents because new patent applications are judged against existing prior art. So if you've made a publication of an invention into the prior art, when a new application comes along on the same thing, the examiners can see that the idea isn't new and the patent application gets rejected. So that's the basics of what defensive publication is. Let's get into why people publish. To understand the reasoning behind why companies publish, research disclosure, we have hundreds of different companies each year who are publishing with us. Many of them have very advanced patent strategies as well. And to get your head around why they are publishing things, it's useful to start with innovation. Innovation has huge value to companies. If you're working at a company which is having new ideas which can create new products, that can mean new revenue streams. If you're coming up with new, more efficient processes, this can mean reduced costs. So innovation can lead to new revenue streams and reduced costs. These are kind of the two most fundamental things about business. But ever since this chap came along, King James VI in England, and came up with his Statute of Monopolies in 1626, simply having good ideas and implementing them into new revenue generating products and new, more efficient processes hasn't been enough. Having an idea and using it doesn't stop someone else from getting a patent on the same idea. And while this wasn't a huge problem in 1626, when there was only a handful of patents being granted each year, now when we look at the volume of patent applications which are going through, in 2011 we had more than 2 million patent applications globally, and about 500,000 of those came from China, and China has a goal to get to 2015 grants by 2015. So there's a huge number of patent applications going through, and while in the past we had to worry about, okay, someone might steal my idea and then patent it, now there's just a much bigger problem that, well, if I have an idea and I don't patent it, if I keep it unpublished, sooner or later, possibly sooner, someone else is going to get a patent on that idea. So how do people get around this problem? How do people stop people patenting ideas which they came up with first? Because if somebody gets a patent on an idea that you came up with first, that you're even using, you've got a big problem. You may have some kind of prior use defense. You may be able to argue that because you had the idea in place in your business before this company filed for a patent, you might be able to get a kind of license to continue using it in the same way. But it's a lot of work to do that, and your best case scenario is very restricted continued usage rights. So how can you stop people getting patents on these ideas in the first place? Well, you could just patent them yourself first. This is definitely the most common way. How do I stop somebody else patenting something which I came up with first? Well, we could patent it first. When you initially apply for a patent application, you have already some pretty limited defensive publication protection. From the moment that you file for a patent application, nobody else can file successfully for exactly the same invention at the same office. And in 3 or 18 months later, once you get your patent publication, then you have a very effective defensive publication. At this point, nobody else can file for the same invention anywhere in the world, and not only can they not file successfully for the same invention, but they can also not file successfully for any invention which would be obvious given your invention. So you have a very effective defensive publication, and you may even get a granted patent as well. And of course, if you get a granted patent, you will get exclusive rights which you can use to stop people using your idea or generate money from licensing. So the patent solution is a very powerful solution to this problem. And you might well be thinking, okay, well, if patenting provides such a great solution to this problem that other people might patent your ideas, well, why does companies like Research Disclosure exist? Why are the big companies who understand patenting still publishing a lot of defensive publications? Well, it's because the patent solution, while powerful, it isn't a perfect solution for every case. It takes time. So in between those 3 or 18 months that pass before you get that powerful defensive publication, that can be an important time period. And also it's expensive. And we're not particularly talking about patent fees here. We're talking about the expense it costs to take a specialist member of staff or employ a external counsel to draft a patent application, to negotiate with the patent offices until you get your grant, and then afterwards, once you've got your grant, to go ahead and enforce that patent. That's the real expenses with patents. So let's compare that with how the defensive publication solution sits. A defensive publication gets you to a very similar situation, defensive publication-wise, as a published patent application. So nobody else can successfully file for an invention which is the same as your idea or obvious given your idea in any country in the world. But it gets you there immediately. It gets you there at a very low cost, and you can get there anonymously. More than 50% of research disclosures are published anonymously. Again, it's not a perfect solution. As soon as you make a publication, you are not only blocking other people from getting a patent on your idea, but you're blocking yourself from getting the idea. So at the time that you make a defensive publication, you are relinquishing your own potential to get exclusive rights. So what's the best solution? Generally, it's a mix. Definitely all of the companies that are using us the most recently are, the most commonly, most frequently, aren't going for a pure defensive publication or certainly a pure patent system. Too many patents. If you're patenting every invention that you're receiving, you're going to end up with a lot of patents which aren't generating revenue for you, unprofitable patents that cost more money to get than they brought in. If you're keeping too many things secret, you risk losing freedom to operate when other people come along and patent it. So a mixed solution is often best. So let's look at some practical examples of defensive publications. I've taken just some abstracts here from publications which have been published in Research Disclosure over the last few weeks. What you see when you start looking at defensive publications is they don't come from one specific industry. We get defensive publications from all areas of science and technology. So if it's not by technology that companies choose whether to publish or patent, how do they choose? How do you decide when you receive an invention disclosure, is this something I should be patenting, or is this something which I should be publishing, is this something I should be keeping secret? Well, there's no hard and fast rule, but a kind of basic gate that you might want to keep in your mind is a simple cost-benefit analysis. Companies that have defensive publication programs are reviewing invention disclosure forms as they come in. They're reviewing the submissions they receive from their employees, and they're saying, okay, what's it going to cost us? What do we expect this to cost us to draft? What do we expect it to cost us to negotiate a grant? What are the enforcement costs going to be afterwards? And how do they compare to the benefits that this patent, these exclusive rights might bring us? The monopoly benefit, what are the licensing estimated benefits that we see, and can we divide that by the percentage chance that we're actually going to get this patent? So cost-benefit analysis, that's a good place to start. The second thing is simple team capacity or external counsel budget. Again, a lot of the people who were publishing the most frequently with research disclosure, a lot of the things they're publishing could easily go on to have become profitable patents, patents which are likely to bring in more benefit than they would have cost to get. But it's a matter of priorities. Even the biggest companies have limited resources in their IP team, in their budgets, and several companies make the decision, okay, we're only going to concentrate on the highest potential patents. So, okay, this one might potentially be profitable for us, but we're going to concentrate on the most profitable patents. We're going to concentrate on getting very good, strong protection there and working on our licensing and securing our areas. So it's a matter of priorities as well as just cost. Beyond those kind of two gates, profitability and priorities, it comes down to different scenarios. I mean, these are scenarios which our clients have given us and said, these are situations where we don't necessarily always publish, but we tend to publish more often than in other scenarios. Companies tell us that they select publication when an invention looks like it's going to be difficult to patent. So what would make an invention difficult to patent? Well, it might be close to existing prior art. So you might be looking at an invention disclosure that's come in and you've found some prior art which is very similar. It might be purely a mathematical algorithm. Going to be very difficult to patent that. So there's times when you receive invention disclosures and you think, I can't go to my boss and tell him this isn't patentable, our competition will never be able to patent this, but equally I know it's going to take us a lot of resources to negotiate this one through. And that changes the cost-benefit analysis. Costs to get the patent go up, therefore more often it's a good option to publish. Very similar scenario, we get lots of publications when things are going to be difficult to enforce. So i.e. when we're talking about an invention which relates to a manufacturing process which you can't necessarily tell in the finished product. So our competitors might be able to manufacture this in many different countries. We might not even be able to tell they've been using it when we look at their products. That means our enforcement costs are going to go up. We're going to need protection in lots of countries. The costs of getting the patent go up. It's not always a good idea to publish, but it's going to be more often a good idea to publish. Sometimes people publish when the product which uses the innovation in question is already well protected. So maybe they already have some kind of monopoly in that area, maybe they have a unique manufacturing ability, or they have existing patents which already protects the products where they're going to use the innovation. Therefore, the benefits of the monopoly go down, and that cost-benefit analysis changes, and we see more publications. We see a lot of publications when a company comes up with an idea which isn't going to be useful to particularly their business model, but it's going to be gold for their suppliers or their customers. If you have an idea which is going to be really useful to your customer base, then yeah, you could patent it and license it to your customers, but that might cause some relationship issues. And also, you really want the maximum number of your customers to benefit from these ideas often, so that your customer market grows and you can sell more products to them. Same situation with suppliers. If you come up with a great way to help your suppliers make their products more efficiently and effectively come up with cheaper products, you often want the maximum numbers of suppliers to benefit from that. So publish it and then you can give it to them all. Finally, another reason we hear often is people publish when they get a second best solution to a problem. So they've sent out a challenge, they've said we need to get around this issue here. Inventors come up with a solution and they receive multiple solutions back. And the best solution they're going to implement into their products, so they patent it and they get their exclusive rights on that. But the second best solution, they're not planning to use it commercially at this stage, so they can't justify the patent expenditure, but equally they don't want to lose the possibility to kind of come back and use that invention if they might need to in the future. So publication is a good option, protects their freedom to operate. Okay, so now you understand, what defensive publication is, and some kind of giving you a little brief introduction into when you might use it. Let's have a look at how you can use defensive publications to kill patents in practice. In my mind, there's two types of ways a defensive publication can kill a patent. There's the manual method and there's the automatic kill. This is what a manual kill looks like. Here we're talking about an opposition action or a patent invalidity defense in exchange as a defense against a patent infringement action. So here someone's come to you and said, we've got a patent on what you're doing, and you're using your defensive publication to try and invalidate their patent, or you've spotted that one of your competitors has got a patent and you're using your defensive publication in opposition against their patent. Done some research on how often this happens. These are parties which have been involved in patent litigation or opposition where research disclosure record was cited in the last few years. There's not many of them. That's because it costs specialist staff time to do this. Far more frequent is the automatic kills. This is what an automatic kill looks like. This is an international searcher report where a patent examiner has found a research disclosure publication and cited it against a pending patent application. The people who published this research disclosure didn't have to lift a finger, they didn't have to use any of their staff time, and it went on to kill a patent application. These are companies which have had research disclosures cited against their pending patent applications in 2012. There's a lot more of them because it costs less to do it. So where do defensive publications come from? So far this talk has been very centered around the concept of invention disclosures. You're in an IP department, your employees are sending you innovations and you're deciding, am I going to keep the secret? Am I going to publish it? Am I going to patent it? But that's not the whole picture. It's probably the biggest picture. That's probably where most of our publications come from, but it's by no means the complete picture. A lot of the things that we receive at Research Disclosure aren't from Invention Disclosure Review. They are information which was already in the public domain, which has been republished in Research Disclosure. Why would you take something which is already in the public domain and republish it? Well, it comes back to the previous slides. If you have a PowerPoint presentation that you gave at a conference, a product manual, an article that you wrote to go on your website, these are things that you could use to manually kill patents. You probably could use them as evidence. You might have some problem proving the date of publication, but you probably could use them as for manual kills. They are almost certainly not going to be automatic kills. Examiners are very unlikely to find the article on your website. They're very unlikely to find the publication of the PowerPoint presentation that you gave at a conference. So these things get republished to make them work for the companies which wrote them, to make them act as active defensive publications, go out there and stop other people's patents. And the final thing that we've seen increasingly in the last 5 years is people publishing the same things that they've already filed patent applications on. Why do they do it? Go back to my patent slide we were talking about earlier. When you first file a patent application, you actually have very weak defensive publication protection. Yes, if someone else files for exactly the same thing in the same office, you're covered, but if they file for something which would have been obvious from it in a different office, you're almost certainly going to have a problem. It's only once the patent gets to publication that you have this strong defensive publication protection. So companies do things like this. They file for a patent application and then a week later they send it for publication in Research Disclosure. This creates immediate prior art which can be used to stop other people's patent applications on the basis of obviousness as well as novelty. Quick slide on Research Disclosure. Research Disclosure has been around since 1960. We've remained a popular place for defensive publication because we're fast, we're cheap, we're independent, so we can provide anonymous publication. But particularly uniquely, we're searched by examiners and we're reliable in court. So by reliable in court, I mean we print all of the defensive publications in paper and we distribute them to patent offices and public libraries in more than 100 countries. And by search by examiners, there's several reasons why we're searched by examiners. We've been around for a long time. We're integrated into a lot of internal patent office systems at the USPTO, within EPOC. We're part of the PCT minimum documentation, so the 14 major WO PCT receiving offices have to search Research Disclosure. And when you're choosing where you want to publish, it's always worth looking at citations. You know, how many times have the place you're thinking of publishing been cited by examiners in the past? Research Disclosure has a very high citation rate. I've linked more than 10% of research disclosures to patent applications which where examiners have gone on to cite that research disclosure. So it's a very highly cited archive. The process is very simple. You write your idea in a Word document, PDF, you upload it through our website, you add the title and your contact details, and we publish it online and then in the paper journal at the end of each month. Thank you very much for listening to that very brief overview of defensive publication. Be happy to answer any questions either now or by email later.
Thank you, Felix. Thanks for a very nice presentation. There are a few questions. Maybe you answered one of them, but can you tell us, like, other than research disclosure, are there any other places publicly available that people can use to submit, and it's searched by patent examiners?
Yeah, I mean, you don't need a particular service. You could make a defensive publication in your own website. You can make a defensive publication by publishing an advert in a newspaper. There are other commercial services available as well. There's definitely no other services that have the same kind of citation rate that we have. I think it really comes down to whether you want those manual kills. If you want manual kills, if you want a publication which is going to be reliable in court but probably not found by the examiners, you have a lot of options. If you want those automatic kills, your best options are probably either research disclosure or filing a patent application and waiting for it to be published.
I see. Maybe you can also switch back to your webcam so
yeah, of course,
viewers can see you. Another question is one of the issues people have faced is to encourage basically engineers to write defensive publications. Do you have any, since you've consulted with different companies, what's the best model that corporations use to encourage that? Usually patents have some sort of incentive internally, but...
yeah, I mean, there's people who publish a lot almost always have some kind of incentive scheme. So in the same way that they would give some kind of monetary or other type of rewards to people who filed patents, they would do something similar for publications. Beyond that, it's not really a matter of encouraging people to make defensive publications, because that's more of a decision for the IP team. It's more about getting invention disclosures in the first place. So how can we get our employees to submit ideas to us? I mean, and that's really a kind of culture of innovation, having a good invention disclosure system in place. There's a lot of innovation capture kind of software out there now where you can use social networking and make demands for innovations and that sort of thing, but a bit beyond the scope of the lecture probably.
Sure. And one last question, is there any right ratio between the number of patents that you file versus defensive publications, say for a medium-sized company? If they receive, like, say, 100 disclosures, what's the right ratio? What percentage of that should be defensive?
I couldn't give you a right ratio, because it depends completely on what industry you're in. If you're in something like pharma, it's going to be a reasonably low percentage because of the reasonably slow pace of how technology is developed, the huge benefit that the monopoly rights can bring. If you're in a more kind of technology kind of company, mobile phones, this sort of thing, very fast pace of development means that often by the time you get patent rights, things have moved on. You're going to have a much higher percentage. If you're working in an area where patent protection is difficult, such as software, again, you see a lot more publications in those areas. So I can't give you a golden 10%. It really depends on what area you're working in.
Sure. Thank you so much, Felix. Again, Felix joined us from France. He's been advising companies on defensive publication for more than 10 years. Thanks for your very interesting talk, and we look forward, if there is any question, I'll forward it to you so you can answer it offline.
Thank you.
Have
Bye.
a nice day. Bye.